What's going on, guys? It's Noble here, and today I'm bringing you the first episode of a brand new series that I'm making, which is entitled the Last2First Sprint Mode series, which will feature me either starting at the back of the grid or dropping to the back of the grid from wherever I'm starting, and then working my way up through the field to finishing first place within the 3 laps you get in sprint mode. As you can imagine, there's going to be quite a lot of carnage along the way, which will be quite entertaining and I imagine quite frustrating for us at the same time. But as you can see, for this first race we are in a Lotus at the Abu Dhabi track and we are in P10 of 10. So first race of the series, we've got double digit number of races, which should provide some entertaining racing as we now get away as we come down to turn 1. We've made up a place already in the P9. We're keeping it nice and out wide to try and avoid the carnage that inevitably goes down in turn 1. There's cars absolutely everywhere. We try and pick a line to get through, but the Red Bull comes across the track and we end up nudging him, which costs us quite a lot of momentum and time. You see, we're in P8, but we gain a position there by a Sauber who's managed to spin off the inside of turn 3. I imagine he probably got a helping hand, but oh well, we've managed to gain that position, which is good to see for us, and we are into P7 of P10 through the first sector. As we come on to the first of these long back straights, we're quite a way behind the cars ahead, so we've had to use our curves to try and get a good run out of the hairpin to try and close the gap as much as possible. We're going to be relying quite a lot on our setup, which is the same thing I normally use in the race note videos, which I show you my setup that I run in them. So you see, we're using the best sort of setup for each track, despite not having like any particular practice at the variety of tracks you end up racing, which means it's going to help us quite a lot as we come towards now the end of the second sector. We've managed to make up a position through that middle chicane, but the Red Bulls come flying back up the inside and cause quite a lot of mayhem as the Australian HRT nearly loses it through there, and we've been hit from behind into that 90-degree left-hander, but we've just managed to save it with the right amount of oversteer, but we've lost that P4 to the Force India. As we continue this fiddly Sector 3 part of the track, we come underneath the hotel, which at night time, it has to be said, is probably one of the greatest spectacles in Formula 1. It just looks absolutely mesmerising, even on this game. But you can see we've gained a position there by Marussia that managed to bury itself in the wall, and he's then quit because of that, which is a shame to see, but I'm sure we'll all get over that one. We come out the final corner, there's a Caterham buried in the wall, but more importantly, we're trying to go around the outside of this Force India, who's pretty insistent in driving us into the wall. We've tempted him to outbrake himself into turn 1, which he's done, and then we get a good cutback, but again he feels the need to drive into us down the straight, but we still managed to get the move done anyway. You see, that moves us up into P2 behind the leader Moss F1 GP, which I'm hoping we can have a good battle with, as his name would suggest, and the fact that he's playing this game is referring to the legend of F1 Sir Sterling Moss. So yeah, hopefully we can have a good battle with this guy, as it would suggest by his gamer tag that he does know a bit about F1, so he should know how to race. So if we can catch up to him by the end of the race, hopefully he'll have a chance to show us what he has got. As you can see, at this point on the lap, we're quite a distance behind him. You see the hotel in the background there, just as we came through the end of that chicane. Looks beautiful, even in the daylight, but especially at night it is just startling. But yeah, as we come down the end of this second long straight towards the end of the second sector, you can see the gap around about a second, but as we come through this fiddly section, we get a great run through here compared to him, and we manage to gain a lot of time just through those 3 or 4 corners. Nowhere really to make a pass in this final sector. It's all about just making sure you get the right lines through all the corners, keeping up the momentum so you can stay close for when there is an overtaking opportunity. You can see we're sort of keeping our lines nice and tidy, once I get my words out, and as you can see, we've still lost quite a bit of time actually through this part of the lap, so it's going to make it quite difficult for us to make a move when the time arrives and there are overtaking opportunities on this track, but we'll have to keep driving as hard as we can to get within range of him to make an overtake. As we start the final lap, still in P2, you can see the leader right ahead of us as we come through turn 1. We've got a good run through there, trying to get a good run through turn 2 and 3, but the dirty air giving us quite a lot of understeer, which has cost us a bit of time. But even into the chicane, we've managed to get good momentum, go round his outside, and we've managed to make our braking points perfectly and not managed to run out wide. But he's come back up our inside for that hairpin. You can see his end plate come into our field of vision, but thankfully there's no contact, so good driving from him and myself there to show each other respect, in that he didn't feel the need to lunge, well, he obviously went up my inside, but he didn't outbrake himself. He didn't smash me off the track, which is very, very common in sprint mode, in the same way that I didn't turn in on him when he had the track position by going up my inside. So yeah, a good overtake, good piece of driving from both of us there for the lead, which is thankfully ours now, as there are just 7 races left on this third lap of the Abu Dhabi track. Coming into the final sector now, going through this once again, the fiddly section. We very nearly lost the back end of the car over the bumps, but we've just about held it, and you see the car behind not particularly in a position to launch an attack, so we've just got to make sure we drive the car nice and safely home and hopefully take the first victory of the series. Just a matter of 2 corners to go now, and you see we're now down to 5 races, so half the drivers who started this race have now left or disconnected for a various number of reasons, I imagine, but we ran the final corner and we bring the car home for first place in the first race. It's a good start to the series there, and as we move on to Canada in Nico Rosberg's Mercedes, and we are P10 of 10, despite the fact that there's 2 cars behind us, so I imagine 2 people have left the race before it's even started. But as you can see, we dropped the positions back down to last, as Williams already on the left hand side of the track who's spun out, as we very nearly spin out ourselves through turn 1, nearly dropping the rear of the car for no apparent reason. But even so, we're up to 7th, and there's now a Red Bull in the wall on the right hand side before the chicane, which has helped gain us another position. Bit of contact between the cars ahead, which has lost that Williams momentum, and we've managed to go round his outside at the end of sector 1. Mauritius sideways across the track. We're going around the outside of this car, who's managed to hit us as we come around the second part of that chicane, but we've managed to catch the slide and carry on our way in P3 already, so that is a good start for us, good opening lap. 2 cars ahead of us are having a fight, and they've cost each other quite a lot of times. We get a good run, but the Toro Rosso decided to brake check us for, well, what appears to be no apparent reason. I don't think he looked like he gained a position by cutting the track, so I'm not sure if he had the whole 7 seconds to give the position back. But even so, even if he didn't, that's still one of the downsides to that whole penalty system, and that obviously people feel the need to slam on the brakes wherever they are on the track, which with no regard to the drivers behind them. Quite surprised I didn't even get a penalty for that, because normally when you hit the car you do get a penalty. But as you see, returning to the action through that final chicane, we got a good run through there compared to the HRT. He looked to be getting went in a bit hot and couldn't get the run out of the corner. We managed to pass him on the run down to turn 1. But he decided to lunge right up our inside into turn 1 and smash us across the grass on the inside of turn 2. Not a lot we could have done there, as he completely outbraked himself. We couldn't turn in as he was there, so we were left with no other option than to cut the corner. But we maintain the position, which is the main thing, as we now hunt down the leader on this second lap. Coming through this middle straight, not too far behind him. We're hoping that he hasn't got the 1-1 wing set up on, as we could do with all the straight line speed advantage we can get to try and make a legit move on him. As you see, we've got a good run out of that chicane. We've moved to his left, and well, despite the fact that we're nearly wheel to wheel, he still felt the need to drive us onto the grass. He's locked up into the hairpin. We've got a good run through there, got a nice cutback, as we are now technically ahead of him, but again he feels the need to push me onto the grass. Having troubles driving in a straight line is, well, it's more common than you'd imagine. People are having trouble with that, but we're just praying that he doesn't smash us. Well, yeah, that went well. The prayer obviously didn't work there, as he still managed to smash us across the tarmac runoff of that final chicane, which slows you down immensely. I'm hoping he got a penalty for that, because that was pretty disgusting driving, to say the very least. As we now are relegated back down to P2, and we very nearly lose the back end coming out of turn 2 there. As we're now on the final lap, coming towards the end of the first sector, you can see the Toro Rosso head has binned it into the wall. That is karma right there. That is the best piece of karma I've seen for a long time. Smashing people off the track, and then you spin and lose first place. Oh, how it's so sweet. As you see, that now means we are into P1 of just 8 remaining races, I think that says. Can't particularly see, my screen is so small when I'm doing this commentary, so I apologise for a lack of detail in gamer tags and split sector times. I just cannot make them out. But yeah, I can at least see that we are purple through that sector, which is good. As we now come down this final back straight for the final time in this race. The cars behind don't look to be in a position to launch a dirty attack on us into this chicane, so we've just got to maintain a good speed through this corner, clipping the apexes nicely, and then driving to the line to take the second victory of the series. So we move on to the third race, and we're starting on pole, despite the fact the game thinks we're starting P2. And yep, typically we're starting on pole in a series where we want to preferably be starting in last, so yeah, the irony. But yes, as you can see, we are pulling off the track there, down to last place into P11, as I'm sure carnage will unfold into this corner. We're taking things nice and easily, trying to avoid the cars as they go from one side of the track to the other. Trying to pick a line. We've been hit from the left and then smashed into the Toro Rosso on the right. We've done a full 360, so we haven't lost as much time as we possibly could have there, but still a massive hindrance to our chances. Two cars facing the completely wrong way round the middle part of Sector 1, which means we're up to P7 as we come through this very beautiful uphill left-hander through the end of Sector 1. As we come towards Degnan 1 now, I think that gap says 4.9. Well, it doesn't particularly matter, the cars seem to have had a problem, as we can see them quite clearly in our field of vision ahead of us, coming into the very difficult braking zone there, and you see the car ahead seems to have got it a little bit wrong. We're going to use a little bit of our curves, but save the majority of it to try and use it coming out of Spoon Curve, which is the long left-hander ahead of us, as I'm sure these guys are probably going to get this wrong, as it is a very difficult corner. No, yeah, as you see, the guy ahead of us runs wide there. There's no braking boards or anything. There's a little tiny sort of dark black rubber strip on the track, sort of like where somebody's locked up, and it's like implemented on the game on the track. So I use that as my sort of braking reference and turning point. But you see, we've got a great run out of that Spoon Curve. As we've used our curves, we pull to the left from the Mercedes. He goes very deep into the chicane, locks up massively, trying to get the cutback, but he's covered it off well. Good driving by him as he's parked it on the apex of the second part of the chicane, which has prevented us from getting the cutback. But as you see down this main straight, our setup and a bit of curves has helped us pass him quite easily before we reach turn 1 on the second lap. So we are now P5 in this race, so just 4 cars ahead. You could just about make them out in the distance as we come through this, probably the best sector on the game, and just on the, in real life, probably one of the best sectors on any track. You see our teammate having a bit of trouble there. I'm not sure what was going on there, driving at about 5 miles an hour, and well, there you go, he's disconnected, so unfortunate for him, but that's another position for us, and just 3 more cars to go. We've got a decent run out of Degna 2 there as we come up towards this difficult braking zone. We're going to hope that this guy makes a mistake and we can get a good run, and he has made a mistake, but we've also gone in there pretty deep. But we've managed to gain time on him, which is the main thing. We're saving our curves once again for the run out of Spoon Curve down towards 130R. We'll see if this guy can make this corner, unlike the guy who was ahead of us last lap. As you see, he's done it pretty well. We're not going to try and lunge him up the second part, as that really isn't an overtaking position. It would only cause contact and cause a crash, I would imagine. And see, we get back on our curves. Looks like he's used some of his curves as well. He moves to the left to defend. We go to his right. He moves back across to the right, and well, the 2 guys ahead of us have managed to crash in a straight line, which we've seen before in this video. Like I said, it's a pretty common sight, more common than you'd imagine, that people have difficulties driving in a straight line. But that's sprint mode for you. You have to, well, you sort of have to laugh when it happens, apart from when it happens to you, where you feel like just turning your Xbox off, as you have to wonder why some people can't drive in a straight line. But back to the action. We've managed to make a similar move to last lap. We go up the inside into turn 1 and make the move before the turn in, but we ran wide, and that's let the guy keep pretty close behind us as a lapped car in a 3-lap race somehow, and he's disconnected anyway, or retired, or whatever that says. So that's not really hindered us much, but it looks like it's hindered the guy behind quite a bit. He doesn't appear to be all that close as we come to the end of the first sector, so he doesn't seem to be in too much of a position to make an overtake. He didn't seem like the dirty type too much, apart from that little incident where he put us on the grass. So hopefully, well, we've locked up into that hairpin, which is surely going to gain him quite a lot of time, unless he makes a similar mistake, which he did the lap before, so it's entirely possible, but we're hoping. And yeah, as you can see from the mini-map, it looks like he made a bit of an error, so he's not particularly close enough to make an overtake on us for the remainder of this lap. But never rule anything out in sprint mode. He could try and lunge from about 5 miles back and still, well, probably roof me off the track and give me a penalty the way this game usually works. But hopefully we'll be able to keep things nice and clean through this final chicane for the final time around the Suzuka track. Just bringing the car down, through, clipping down the gears, going through the apexes, and we get a good exit and drive towards the line to take the 3rd victory out of 3 for this series. One more race to show you for this episode, and we bring you to everyone's favourite sprint mode track. It's Monza. There's 11 drivers, so you can imagine what sort of carnage is going to go down in turn 1 as we pull off to the left to let everyone pass once again. As you see, cars are already 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide as they go down to turn 1. The 2 guys ahead of us are taking it nice and easily, the same as us. We're going to try and nick this position from the Lotus, who's taking things a bit too careful. As you can see, there's about 5 cars there, all sort of within the gravel and bumping and everything, but we managed to pick the one clear route on the track to get through all that mess, and we've gone from P11 to P4 in 2 corners. As is the case, that is the case with Monza. You either escape the carnage and make up loads of positions, or you get caught up in the carnage and you lose about 20 years worth of time, just because everyone finds it so hard to stop crashing into each other around this track. I'm not entirely sure why this track of all tracks, but yeah, it's the way the game works, unfortunately, and the way some people like to drive. You can see the car ahead of us about in second and a half ahead, so we'll be hoping to get close to him, maybe into turn 1, I'd imagine, at this rate of closing. It seems like he's got a pretty poor run for Ascari compared to our pretty decent run, so perhaps we can get him on the exit of Parabolica. Maybe if he makes a mistake we'll be able to sneak by. You'll see coming down well over 200 miles an hour, the fastest track on the game is Monza. It's a beautiful track, and you see there the guy runs wide through Parabolica, which promotes us up to P3 as we duck up his inside. Yeah, as I was saying, this track's just such a low downforce track. The car's reaching in excess of 215 miles an hour normally. It's just a great spectacle to watch, as the car behind has absolutely roofed us across the runoff area of turn 1 and 2. Big Kev, who was a provisional leader, I think, has ended up binning it in the gravel, which means we've actually been promoted to P2 despite being roofed across turn 1 and 2, which is a bonus for such a bad piece of driving from that guy who was behind us. Looks like we've got a Ferrari ahead of us, a Ferrari at Monza now. This could get interesting. We move to the right, he defends to the right, he then comes back onto the racing line, which for people who follow F1 will know that's an illegal move, but in sprint mode that's very, very minor compared to what usually happens, and he's locked up and got a slide on coming out of Lesmo 2, which has meant we've hit the back of him and lost position to Big Kev in the Mercedes, so we are back down to P3 as we come towards the end of the second sector on this second lap. Trying to keep it nice and clean through Ascari, which we do very nicely. The Mercedes ahead looking like he's having a bit of trouble, and he's lost the back end coming out of Ascari and buried it in the wall. I see we've got a great run using all our cars on this Ferrari. We move to his right and he roofs. Wow. What can you say? That is sprint mode in one piece of action there. We got a great run on the Ferrari, and for whatever reason, he's British as well, so I don't imagine there's too much lag involved. He's seen us, I presume he's seen us coming, and then as I pull out and come alongside him, he's driven us straight onto the grass. It'll be interesting to see what happens here for the rest of this final lap. See, he left us room there for some reason, despite the fact that earlier he roofed us onto the grass when we were alongside. This time when we're alongside, he leaves us room, so quite unpredictable behaviour from this guy. It looks like, I imagine he's driving on a pad as his steering inputs look quite twitchy. It's quite hard to tell which way he's going, but we've surprised him with the burst of curves as we come down to this second chicane. We cover the inside line, spot the braking zone well, and make that move stick as we take the lead on the final lap at the end of the first sector. Coming through Lesmo 1 now, and then at Lesmo 2, a beautiful sequence of corners. So sweet when you get them all hooked up like we have there, and that has really helped us pull out a gap to the Ferrari behind, hoping that he's not close enough to make a desperate lunge at the remainder of these, well, Ascari and Parabolica. Not massive heavy braking zones, so I imagine he won't be in a position to hit us off at any point, even if he managed to go full throttle into Parabolica, which some people are sad enough to do. When they're not winning, they will just not abide by any braking rules or distances, and then all of a sudden you find yourself being smashed off at 200 miles an hour. But thankfully, for the final race of this series, the guy hasn't been able to hit us, and we've taken the victory for the 4th time, and that is the end of the action for this video. So I do hope you enjoyed this series. I hope you like the idea of it and enjoying the footage that comes along with it. As always, please leave feedback as to how you think it could be improved, and I will most definitely take that on board and try and improve it for the future. But yeah, for now I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you for my next video. Cheers for now.